Can you hear us? I think your audio is just connecting.
Yeah.
It's
Perfect timing, Justin. David, we'll hand it off to you for our third update or presentation on our by-area elections, and we have a new map to share. And so Justin, will hand it off to you to start with. How's that?
Sure. So I'm sorry, just give me 1 second to
No worries. I know
pull up that presentation.
we're a little ahead of schedule, so.
Okay. All right.
But your timing was impeccable. So
3:35 I heard. So I will, while I'm killing a little time, this is the wildest day in the past several months, just given many boards are meeting on this day. So we're thankful that yours is earlier.
And I think we are too, so it's all good. So
Yeah. And can I ask real quick, Mickey, did Andrew send that presentation to you? Otherwise,
by presentation, do you mean the draft map?
I can just go through the maps, which is what I think I have in front of me here. Yeah.
And Justin, the other thing I mentioned is if there's a little time to maybe give a couple pointers to trustees on how to actually use the mapping tool. I think there was some expressed interest in that when we had a retreat last Friday.
Okay, sure. Well, why don't I just start by telling a little bit about where we're at this point. We have 2 maps that we've shared with you all. For today, there was a community submitted map that we were able to recreate, but given the posting deadlines, we're not able to share that. But I think that is something that we can talk about beyond here.
So I guess that's the misunderstanding on my part, Justin. So we're not able to actually share what was submitted at this meeting?
So because it wasn't, because we weren't able to post that within 7 days, that's the requirement, is that we post it 7 days in advance. I will defer to David. He is the attorney. I don't like to get out, out of my depth.
So we can certainly tap and go through that map. The difference is that if that map becomes the preference of this board, you can't adopt it at this meeting.
Oh, correct.
And just
Understood.
and for clarification there, I did pull the resolution at the beginning of the meeting, so we don't plan to take any action on the item tonight.
That makes it easy.
Okay.
Wandine, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering for Justin's benefit, when we have an opportunity to go through the, I know Paul, Trustee De Silva had a lot of fun and he expressed the joy in playing with the map. I got to places where I could create sections, but I couldn't figure out if they were the right number. But I know there's a tutorial that I didn't do, so I can do that. But I think mostly it's, if you could just give us the basics so that we could play with it a little bit, I think that would help us all.
Sure. Yeah, happy to do that. It isn't intuitive. I know that just kind of orienting yourself towards the maps is one thing. And then once you've done that, it's, the district is divided into census blocks, which isn't necessarily intuitive. And how do you, I think it is a very great tool to be able to use, but certainly I can walk through it and just kind of demonstrate what it does.
Okay,
Let me
so
first.
Justin, one moment. Paul, you have your hand up. Is it something to talk about before Justin's presentation?
Yes, I just wonder how all this information comes together and is presented to us and to the public on the college webpage, because and in other ways, because I know we're going to have this new map, which I guess none of us have seen. There's also, I guess, the public gallery that has maps in it, and then there is the spreadsheet that we received just before this meeting with the public comment. So there are these different types of public input that we're getting, I just wonder how they mesh with each other.
Well, why don't I first start, and then perhaps Mickey and David can talk about the website and what they're doing with that information. But I think generally they're passing that information on to us. For instance, there is a resident of the area that is well-versed in GIS. So he submitted a map directly to us. What we did is we went and validated that and plugged that information in, and we will share that with you tonight. So, you know, there's a couple of different ways that districts go about doing this. They can give us just tangible recommendations about where to draw lines. That's, you know, simply put, they can submit their own maps. They can make more general statements about it would be good to keep this neighborhood together, or perhaps you use this map scenario as a starting point and then make these changes. So from our end, that's how we take that information in and go back and you know, respond to those suggestions that are brought up. There may be other suggestions that are more global if it has to do with demographics, and if it has to do with you know, the sort of the bigger picture. And again, I think we either look at our existing map scenarios that we've created and say, well, this responds to that in these ways. Or perhaps we'll go, and if there's some nugget of information there that's helpful, we'll go and create a new scenario. You know, I'll be honest that there's quite often questions that come up that will say that, hey, you know, you should have, for instance, Novato should all be its own trustee area, or this area should all be its own trustee area. And then we will go and we'll look at the data and we'll show why that's not possible. You know, it's so those are the types of things that hopefully we can communicate to you all, draw maps that respond to those types of things. Yeah, so I think just in terms of the mapping, that's how we approach it.
Okay, great.
But just to follow up, so now we have these 3 statements in the that we've gotten as in a spreadsheet, and then I guess there's one map in the public gallery on the college's website. Do these result then in 4 additional options that we have to consider?
Yeah, so you may consider them, and I think what we can do is we can go and just first of all make sure that it checks out from a population standpoint, that it's balanced, because there isn't anything that would necessarily disallow that map just because it was out of balance. You know, the mapping tool doesn't say, nope, sorry, this isn't compliant. So there's an extra step again that we have to take to validate that. And then I think once it's validated, certainly we can and will share. That's the whole point. That's why you made the investment. That's why you were as patient as you were, is just so that you could get that feedback. If somebody has a great idea about how to do this differently, then we're all ears. I think what we said from the get-go is that we're mapping folks, and we do the data analysis, but you know your community, and certainly your community members know those communities and neighborhoods. So to the extent that they can augment our understanding of your community and provide, you know, additional information, that's what this process is all about. And that's why we're having public hearings. That's why you're you know, really investing in this community outreach to get that.
I think one of the great advantages of using the tool is to appreciate how challenging your job is.
Yeah,
I found that when I got in there, you know, I started messing with things and this doesn't work, this doesn't work. So yeah, so thank you for that.
All right,
You bet.
Justin, are you ready to go?
I am.
All right.
And let me share my screen here. All right, so what I shared with you on the last time that we met, this is scenario 1, and I'm just going to walk through. There are 3 pages on each one of these. This is zoomed out to the full extent of the district, and given the fact that you cover a large geographic area, it's helpful for us to be able to kind of zoom into the more populous areas where more of those boundaries come together. And so in this full extent, I think it's helpful just to orient ourselves on the map. Trustee area 1 is that area in sort of the North Novato area that's colored in yellow. Hopefully, by the way, these colors are, like we talked about, these colors are working easier just to be able to distinguish, and you can let us know if there's additional changes. But again, hopefully that's working. Trustee area 2 is just to the south of that. It's the area in red. Trustee area 3 is the area in really kind of like an olive green color that is more along the bay. And then just west of that is trustee area 4 in the blue color. Trustee area 5 is sort of a light purple or lilac color. Trustee area 6 I would describe as tan down in the very southern portion of the district, and then trustee area 7 in the aqua or teal color. Let's see here. And when we zoom in, there's a couple of things that I will point out here. Again, the colors represent the proposed boundaries, the city boundaries, and admittedly, they're a little hard to make out here because they're all over the place, but the city boundaries are shown in that blue outline there. And so you will be able to see how responsive, at least in this area down towards San Rafael, the boundaries are to what those city boundary lines are. And again, you will see that trustee area 2 is in the northern portion of this screen. Trustee area 3 is in more on the eastern portion along the bay. Trustee area 4 covers more of the downtown San Rafael area. Trustee area 5 is just south of that, covering a portion of Ross, a portion of Larkspur, and Corte Madera. And then it cuts off right where you would see Mill Valley, and trustee area 6 kind of continuing into Mill Valley. Trustee area 7 you'll see is along the west, and as has been noted before, really covers the coastal area, almost the entirety of it. That's trustee area 7. I'm going to zoom in here. And how do I do that?
Down at the bottom. Yeah, there you go.
There we go. I'm used to having my mouse where I can do that a lot easier, but not today. So a couple of things I want to point out. As I think I mentioned before, there's really, just in terms of population balance and how we contextualize that, we look at the total population, which is just shy of 258,000. And we take the 7 trustee areas, and simple division problem there, we're left with an average size of 36,857, average or ideal size. That's the target if you were to be perfectly balanced, which of course nobody is. The variance for scenario 1 is 4.3%. I'll remind you that for our purposes, the legal presumption is that less than 10% is within the population balance threshold. So we are well within that. You will see that trustee area 1 is the largest at 2.6%, and trustee area 2 is the smallest at 1.7%. This first table up here where it says total population, that has to do with the census. And I'll remind you that we really focus on 2 different data points, both the census, which counts each and every person without any exclusion, and then the citizen voting age population, which is a measure of voting strength for minority groups. It's important for us relative to the Federal Voting Rights Act. What we want to make sure is that we're not dividing certain protected classes of voters in such a way that it impairs the ability of them to elect the candidate of their choice. Now, I will say that your largest protected class is the group of Hispanic Latino voters based on citizen voting age population. We don't have anything that is approaching a majority or even a plurality, given the demographics of your district. But the area that does have the largest concentration is trustee area 3. That's the area that covers San Rafael, I think not surprisingly. And so if we go to the second scenario, you'll see similar changes here, but I think one thing in particular, and I noted this last time, it was also a cause for some feedback for us to have trustee area 7 extend all the way from the northern portion of your district at the edge of Marin County there all the way down to the south. There were comments made and point taken that there is a vast difference between the geography covered in that particular area. Again, the color scheme and the where the trustee areas are oriented are generally the same here. And we'll zoom in again to where the more populous area is. What did occur in sort of the different way that we looked at this is mostly changes with trustee area 4 and 5, and trustee area 5 really extending more north and west towards the coast. That was the shift of having trustee area 7 drop all the way down to the south. That naturally kind of shifted the other boundaries in ways here. So speaking of the demographics for this one, not major changes. The variance is tighter at 2.3%. In this case, trustee area 2 is the largest and trustee area 4 is the smallest. And then when we look at citizen voting age population, again, very, very similar. It didn't move the margins tremendously here, but the largest concentration of a protected class is again in trustee area 3, with the Hispanic Latino voters constituting 14.1%. And so the map that we created, that was submitted from the community member, and we just completed this. So sort of big picture, I think reflections on what I see here. Similarly, I think to scenario 1, trustee area 7 is it doesn't quite reach all the way down to the southern tip of Marin there. But what it does is it covers the northern portion of the city of Novato. And so that's unique and different than what we did in either scenario 1 or 2. It included that portion of Novato with the area that is that coastal area, which I think is a good thing for us to discuss. Trustee area 1 in this case covered more of the southern and eastern portion of Novato. As you can see, at least in the northern portion, the dividing line there becomes 101. And then similarly, you'll see the effects, if we were to think about this, the way these shifted, you started to see more of kind of a clockwise shift of those trustee areas since that portion of Novato was covered by trustee area 7. I'll zoom in here. There's different, I think there's some different dividing lines just in terms of being a little bit more responsive to the city of San Rafael boundaries, where trustee area 2 and trustee area 4 come together. So it does follow along those boundaries more closely if you look up towards the center and the northern portion, at least of this map. And so I think that this scenario really does take into those jurisdictions to the extent it can. I will remind everybody that we won't be able to do that perfectly, just given our requirement to balance populations. And so, but I do see that it follows along the city boundaries more closely. From a demographic perspective, there's a larger variance in this, and I would imagine that to be the case just when you're trying to follow those municipal boundaries more closely. You are likely to see some different changes, but I will note that, and I try to emphasize this, that compliance with the population balance requirement is less than 10%. Some people look at that very narrowly and say that, well, the closer you can get that variance to zero, the better. I might argue that if you had a larger variance, but communities and neighborhoods were kept more cohesive and together, that would be a valid trade-off, and I think would be a good outcome. So at 8.5%, what we see is that the largest trustee area is trustee area 3 at 4.9% and trustee area 7 at minus 3.6%. And just in terms of the citizen voting age population, in this particular scenario, trustee area 3 again has the largest concentration of a protected class, again with the Hispanic Latino voters at 15.3%. So maybe you can give me a minute. I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll get to the tool that we can use in order to play around with that and just do a quick demonstration.
So Justin, while you're doing that, just a quick question. Have we done is there available a side-by-side voting population comparison 1, 2, and Griggy, or whatever the name of that one is so we can sort of see in that data point?
We have not prepared that. Certainly we can. That's straightforward enough. And we can put the tables side by side, or we can even break it down trustee area by trustee area. Yeah. And however you would like that data, we can do that. So happy to do that as a follow-up.
I think that might be helpful. Wandine.
I'm just wondering, can we manipulate, like, it looked like we'll save scenario 3 for ease of reference. Scenario 3 actually looked a lot more interesting to me, just from the concentration of areas and kind of how the shifting may need to happen as Novato grows. But I think, will we be able to take the tool and then like move it a little bit here and there?
Certainly, and I think also I'll have to double check with Andrew, who's our GIS guru. I believe we have the capability of preloading scenarios. So for instance, you could choose a starting point of scenario 1, scenario 2, the Zachary Griggy's map. And I think people might like that, so that you're not just starting from scratch. Now you're making smaller changes.
Yeah, and unless others disagree, I mean, I think just looking at it from my preliminary view today of scenario 3, we would focus on 1 and 3 probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul?
Yes, I would echo that desire to be able to tweak the existing maps. You can load them in. I tried to do that, but I didn't think when I was using the tool that was an option that was available. And then I'm just also looking at the comments in the spreadsheet, and I realized that the third comment is actually from Zachary Griggy. So he has a description of what he feels his map does better. And then the comments from Shelley Scott and Brady Beavis are really not new maps. They're just comments on the process, I think. So then there still is that one other. So then really we might have 4 maps, because I guess there's just one in the gallery, the public gallery, which seems to be somewhat similar to the Griggy map, in that it follows the city boundaries. So maybe that's another thing that we could comment on at some point.
Okay.
Because I think it's very useful to have more alternatives, because it makes us think more about how the maps are similar and how they're different. I noticed one thing that's not too clear on the Griggy map is which side of the line certain current trustees fall on.
Yeah, and we can provide that information, and just to clarify, obviously we have that in-house where we can zoom in and identify exactly where those boundaries are and where your addresses are. That's something that we have those, because we need to identify what the potential election sequencing would be. So point being that we can easily do that. And let me just jot that down, make sure I'm getting these follow-up items: the comparison of CVAP, and then also just more definitive information about where trustees live.
And just, Diana, I see you. I just want to qualify that we need to adopt a map in January. I believe that's when our action, is that David, correct? So I think we should, try to contain, how many different versions and how long we continue to analyze this. But I was also under the impression that, where the current trustees are shouldn't influence our decision.
Maybe not our decision, our curiosity is satisfied.
Oh, that's
How's that?
true.
No, what I
Not
learned,
that,
what I learned in Novato was that you are supposed to, it is a factor to take under consideration because the existing trustees were all elected by people who lived there.
Okay, thank you.
Supposed to
Diana,
be a
thank you.
factor.
Thank you.
yeah, I agree with Wendine and everybody else that's talked that I think we're looking at scenario 1 and 3, and I'm glad we're going to get those comparisons, side-by-side comparisons, so we can take a look at what the ramifications of that are. But it's my understanding, am I understanding correctly, Justin, that with number 3, you still have to take a look at precincts, and that may change things when you take a look at that. But is it in compliance now with the number variances?
It is,
That's
yeah.
right.
It is. It's less than 10%, and it's the variance is higher than the other two scenarios. But again, my point was I would take that with a grain of salt. You don't get extra points for being right at 0 or 1 or perfectly balanced. I think some people will look at it that way, and they have a valid argument. My point was that you also have to take that with things that we started off this conversation with, those other criteria that we mentioned, months ago now, and keeping communities together is a really important part of that. So if the effect of keeping more communities together in the way the community really views themselves and having that cohesiveness, if the trade-off is a higher variance, in my mind, that is a good trade-off to make. So I think, and that's where your sensibilities and your responsiveness to the community as board members is really important. Is it more important to keep communities together if you're able to, again, be underneath that threshold, or is it even more important just to make sure things are as balanced as possible? That's
So I would personally agree that keeping communities together is an important thing for us to factor in. And there are things in the third map that do that, I think, maybe a little bit better. So I think it warrants a real much closer look.
Sure.
All right, Justin, you ready to continue?
Yes. So this is the District R map, mapping application. And a couple of things that you'll see here, there are 2 different options. The one on the left allows you to draw trustee areas based on the census blocks. The one to the right here allows you to be able to focus in on a community and simply submit. You could just take an aggregation of census blocks and say, hey, this is a neighborhood. This is how downtown San Rafael really should be viewed, or this is how a particular community that I'm familiar with should be used. I think most people are more familiar with or have opted to use this option, which is just to create each of the trustee areas. And so we'll start here. And so you'll see if I'm to zoom in here, each one of these lines represents the census blocks as drawn by the 2020 census. And so, and I do want to note here, there is a little informational item here. We didn't just take the census information that was released by the Federal Census Bureau. This is the data that has been adjusted by the California Department of Finance. As you probably recall, there were shifts in population based on where incarcerated persons, where their last known address was. So this has the most up-to-date information, which is what we want to use in order to most accurately reflect what the trustee area should be. You'll see down here, it says the ideal size is 36,857. And so if we go to, I'm going to zoom out real quick. So if we wanted to start in the Novato area, let's say, just because that's right in front of me, we would select the paintbrush here, and we would select the color. And as you see, as I roll over each one of these colors, it matches with the trustee areas. So 1 through 7 here, this circle shows that I've currently selected trustee area 1. And so if I roll over these and I'm hitting I'm left clicking as I'm doing this, it'll highlight those areas that I want to include in trustee area 1. And you'll see the bar to the right-hand side shows me where my population is going. Now I'm keeping in mind the fact that I want to have, I want to have 36,857. So I'll pause there for a second and then zoom in to make sure that I've grabbed each and every one of the census blocks that I intended to. So you'll see there's a couple I want to clean up here. Maybe I want to take this down to this area here. I'm selecting what I can.
And each one of those is a census block or a precinct?
Each one of these is a census block. I think that's a good point because there are things that we need to keep in mind. Real quick, I just want to point out the census blocks for this census cycle are a little different than what we've dealt with in the past. Thinking back and comparing to the 2010 census, there were about 20% more census blocks in 2010 than there are now. And that's a function of the census consolidating some of the census blocks together. So you'll see that I'm trying to just pick up this piece right here, but it's grabbing a little piece of what's north of there as well. So I'm just keeping in mind, you have a combination of streets and also the census block boundaries too. So it's a little sensitive to that. That's the only thing that I will.
But Justin, if you address your brush size to make it the smallest possible, are you still going on census blocks, or do you go down to some smaller unit?
No, I'm just the smallest unit here is census blocks.
Oh, okay. So your brush size allows you to grab 2 census blocks separately if they're closer together?
Yeah, if I just keep, if I keep click, I can just click one, or I can just hold down and it'll, grab each one of the ones that I have that I have done here. Now, let me just demonstrate that if I'm to, I didn't like how I cut this particular area. And so what I can do is I can now select trustee area 2, and I can start to, now it'll reassign some of those blocks that I had previously put into trustee area 1. Now it's reassigning them to trustee area 2. In my mind, this is the nice part of the functionality of this tool, is that it's real easy to make changes. It's not as clunky as the GIS system that we use. There are limitations to this tool and can't do some of the things that we can do in our GIS system, but it's definitely a lot more user-friendly. So ultimately, what I'm trying to do is to, again, create the 7 districts, and there you'll have to sort of zoom in and out to be able to, to get the perspective that you want, and assign every single one of the blocks within this map. that's another part of our validation process, just to make sure that, you know, we're not leaving any of the census blocks unassigned. I see that Andrew just joined us, and without putting him on the spot too much, I'll see if he wants to add anything just about this tool. I like the fact that there's this undo and redo function. So if you did something you didn't want to, you had a perfect map and then you made one little change you didn't want to do, you can undo or redo, if you guys can see where that is. It gives you the ability to lock the districts that you've already drawn. So if you're satisfied with them and you don't want any changes to accidentally be made there, you can click on that tab. And then there's some other information here, boundaries that you can include if you want to. I'll zoom in there so you can see what those boundaries are. Oh, didn't want to do that. And so you'll see the black outline there shows the incorporated boundaries of these areas. And so I think that's helpful as well for people who may not be as familiar with how the city defines the boundaries or what's incorporated. You'll see school districts are here as an option as well. And then finally, just the last piece here, this gives you an indication. This, I believe, is simply based on the census. There is not, there is not a citizen voting age population portion to this. And I'll pause there for a sec. Andrew, have you joined us, and would anything that you would want to add? You're more familiar with this district or tool than I am.
No, I did just join, Justin, but I think you're covering what I would mention as well.
Now, Paul, just this sort of goes to your previous question. When this is saved here, Andrew, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's saved in the public gallery, but it also gives us a notification that there is a map that has been saved. Andrew, is that correct?
It saves it to the gallery. I have to check my emails if it gives me a notification. I get so many of these. What I normally do is I just come back to the site and see if there's anything new to the gallery.
And then one other thing I noticed that was very helpful is that somewhere, I don't know where, I can't remember now, there was a little thing you could click on to highlight the unassigned parts.
Yeah, let me.
That helped me know. Yeah, there it is at the bottom. Highlight unassigned units.
Right.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and certainly, and that's to the point of, what I was talking about. We want to make sure that every census block is assigned because the map won't be valid otherwise. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Wandine.
Well, just a point to add to what Justin was saying, when I appreciate the reset or redo option that you showed us, because I kept going to erase. And erase is really good if you want to do a broader brush, but that was really helpful to see what you just pointed out. And I just thought it might help others when they get into the tool.
Certainly.
Okay, what else do we have on this, Justin?
I think those are the key things. I have a couple of to-do items. The CVAP comparison, the confirming trustee residences, just in terms of which trustee area they reside in, based on each of the 3 scenarios, and then so those are my follow-up items. If there's anything else, I think what I heard is that trustee area 3, scenario 3 is something that you all would like to explore a little bit more. So maybe some homework, if it's not too much trouble, is just to send some of those comments to staff, and then they can pass those on to us, ways that we can perhaps use that as a starting point and improve upon it. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, just a point of clarification. I think we're pretty clear on scenario 1 and 2 where the trustee areas are. It was just in 3 because
Okay.
it looked like somewhere on the cusp. So if you could confirm that, that would be great.
Sure.
Wandine and then Paul.
And Justin, I can confirm in scenario 3, the new one, that every trustee is in their own area. There's 3 that are very, very close to the edge. I believe in areas 2, or 3, 4, and 5, kind of down in the San Rafael area. They're all right there on the edge.
Thank you. Wandine?
And now I forgot, no. Okay, so, process. Yeah, so process-wise, if we saw, let's say we like scenario 3 for the sake of discussion, because it's a new one. And if we have questions, we relay them to you, you just said, but I think the board, we need to figure out, do we need another meeting? And I'm just putting a pin in it, as Rachel would say. Because if any one of us were to take the time, and I just only took a short amount of time, it is fun and it is interesting to do, but if we took scenario 3, we would be able to play with that, correct? Yeah. And then if we had slight variances, when would we discuss it, or do we see us coming together on January 18th and doing it all at once? So I'm just putting that out there. Somewhere we need that conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, David, if you could answer that before we get to Paul. Because we do.
So actually, I'm gonna ask the other David to comment on process, David
Okay.
Soldani, because I think it's key to know what our options are going forward based on our timeline.
Great, thank you. David?
So, I mean, you can have engagement in a number of ways here. You can continue to do so at these meetings. You can have a subsequent follow-up meeting where that feedback is provided, and also an opportunity is provided to members of the public to have that similar engagement. You could do it that way, which is, that's probably the way that I would recommend. There are other models for doing that. There's kind of the subcommittee model. There's the community forum and direct engagement model. But I think if you were to confine that to these meetings and have everybody provide that opportunity during these duly noticed public meetings, then everybody kind of gets a chance to see at the same time everybody's thoughts on that. And that's really kind of the point of the public hearings, is to generate that feedback through a real public facing process.
So we have
Thank you. Stephanie, can I follow up quickly?
I was going to just clarify the fact that we actually have a public hearing agendized at 5 o'clock today. So should we continue those conversations at that time? Or because this topic is adoption process. So,
Okay.
just,
So that is, I mean, and they're related. As a part of the adoption process, there is that mandatory requirement for that public hearing and to get that feedback. And that feedback doesn't only include members of the public, it includes you as a trustee of the board. So really that's your opportunity to have those conversations and provide that feedback on the draft.
Okay, so
Timeline.
okay, so follow up to that. I mean, I think the piece that I am intrigued that this community member admittedly already helped Novato with their plan and is clearly helping us here. And it's a good synthesis relative to keeping cities together, which kind of all my first impressions of it. But what we are now doing is we have to delay because we didn't have this map posted for 7 days. So what I don't want to have happen is that any one of us, I mean, maybe we decide we don't play with the tool at all and we don't come back with another plan, and then we're just going to go with 1, 2, or 3, and that's it. But if we have some expectation that we might tweak it slightly, it seems to me, if I'm understanding correctly, we would not be able to have that conversation on January 18th and adopt yet a 4th map that is a tweaking of 3, for example.
right. That's my understanding. Is that right, David?
Right. And so that's where I'm saying, I'm not sure we can leave it to the 18th if there's going to be discussion about scenario 3, or if there's going to be any expectation that any of us play with this a little bit and make some suggested changes.
So
Right.
here's the rule on that. In order to adopt a map that has been revised, that map has to, by law, have been posted 7 days prior to its approval.
Oh. you're
That's
fine.
the requirement. And in terms of, if I could weigh in on the timeline, I keep hearing dates about January and February. I don't know if you are aware that that may be certainly our goal for a timeline, but our election's not until November, is my understanding, correct?
Yes, but we have different timelines as a community college district that we have to follow, correct, David? That we have a couple of other hoops that we have to go through in order to get it ready.
I think what that David's getting at, I think what David's getting at is that we may have more time than we conservatively projected originally.
Yes, that's my point. So I don't want anybody to feel like, well, we have to rush this because we're up against a fence or something, because that's really not the case. We do have some more time if we need it. That's the point I wanted to get across.
Okay, thank you. Paul and then Diana.
When I'm buying shoes, I usually try on several different pairs. And then even if I think I'm pretty sure that one is the one that fits the best, I go back and try the other ones just to make sure that they don't fit, and I'm more certain of my decision. So I think it really would help to have, maybe 4 maps just to show. And the one that's in the gallery would help me to see where the trustees are on that map, because I think that would help us might help us eliminate it, because I think several trustees would fall into the same district in that map. But it would help to just have those put on, have the current trustees addresses put onto that map.
I believe, Paul, if you zoom in, they were on the map, and Andrew mentioned that there are no overlaps. There's people who are close.
On number 4, no, I think you're thinking about number 3. I'm thinking about the 4th one, though. It's in the public gallery.
Yeah, you're correct, Mr. De Silva, that there is a map in the public gallery, and I will, after tonight, produce that in the same format. You've seen the other map, so you can compare it with the current trustee residences to see how that shakes out.
Thank you. I think those 4 maps are really a nice display of the differences. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Diana.
Oh, just coming back around to the timing of it. So I think there's a lot of interest in exploring map number 3, but there's some really key pieces of information that are missing. So if we don't get that until the 18th and we're going to discuss it on the 18th, am I hearing that? So then we can't post it ahead of time? Or wait, how does that all work? And am I hearing that if it goes into February, that's not a problem?
Yeah, you're hearing both of those things. You're hearing you have a little more time than I think we conservatively estimated up front, but the requirement is that the maps be posted 7 days prior to that map's adoption. If you're making adjustments to a map, that has to be posted publicly 7 days in advance of your public consideration of that map.
Okay. So it could be February.
Yes, that would still provide you enough time.
Okay. All right, thank you. Eva? You're muted.
I have a couple of questions, and more and more I'm hearing about there's I don't know how massive an exodus it is on people moving from Marin elsewhere. Do we have a handle on the mobility factors that's changing rather rapidly? And if yes, that's great, because I think that's something that we probably need to know. Second is, I understand that any candidate that's running this coming season can have access to the precinct voter data. What I'm going to ask about is how does the precinct voter data integrate with our perceived thoughts of the district? In other words, are they fairly well matched? I know that we can look at the diversity of the population. I'm curious about those that voted in the past. Are they in the right areas, and is there a way to affirm the data? And let's see. I had a little bit of time to look at the maps and play with it, and I was glad that I was able to do that, because I discovered that I inherited some other areas of communities that was of common interest and active community that would integrate well with my present district area. So I wanted to pass that along so that all of you are aware. Thank you.
Eva, I have a favor. When you have papers, please don't put them by your keyboard because every time you move them, they come across on the microphone. So we really can't hear what you're saying. Okay. So just maybe you can keep them away.
Anything?
What's that?
Do I need to repeat anything?
No, we heard you. I'm just saying going forward. Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you.
Paul and then Wandine.
Yes, I just have one more procedure question. It seems maybe things aren't as complicated as we might think. So for example, say trustee Trainer today goes and modifies a map and submits it. Theoretically, anytime between now and January 11th, you could post it or you could send us your redaction, and I guess it would be David who would post it, and then we could actually adopt it or not adopt it at the January 18th meeting.
Yeah, it's posted 7 days prior.
Yep. I'll say that Andrew needs a little lead time just to be able to reproduce those maps, but does not take him long to go and turn that around.
Okay, great. Thank you. Wandine.
Mine was also just to, I think it would be really helpful when we get into the public hearing part, if either Dr. Kuhn or David Saldani could summarize why we're not voting tonight and the importance of us receiving a map from the public and in the 7-day issue. So it's not like, we had a very good conversation just now that was full of lots of information. And I just think it's important that it get relayed in the public hearing time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So when we get to that point, Phil, we haven't heard from you. Suzanne, we haven't heard from you. Any comments or thoughts?
I think that, this process of adding another one that has considered some of the city district lines helpful and informative. And I appreciate, looking at the tool to see how that works a little bit. And I understand we're going to have a little bit more time to address that. So, but are there some other nuances that we haven't discussed that somebody who's kind of gone at it in detail, be it, Wandine or Paul or anybody else that we're missing that would be helpful to understand? Or is it just about kind of playing with the census blocks and the numbers? Is there anything else that I'm missing?
So since we have a public hearing, I think that's a really great time to have that, at 5 o'clock, right? To have that more in-depth conversation. We've had some really good in-depth conversation now. But Justin, do you mind if we just hear from Suzanne really quickly?
Not at all, not at all.
Okay, haven't heard from her at all today on this.
Having gone through this when Novato did it, it is really straightforward, but people get very confused, as we saw in the comments, because we have both the populations, which is the only thing that we're allowed to use in divvying this up, and then the voter age people, which is just a point of interest. But since it's there, people keep focusing on the voters, and I think we need to put that up somewhere in bold letters, because it really skews the conversations a lot. Also, I think once again, the third one is wonderful. I'm going to have fun. I've been playing with the other ones, but I enjoy this process. And but like I said, he drew a great map for Novato. So and I do like how he really thought about the city lines. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Justin.
I was just going to note that I will not be around for the public hearing, but that Andrew will,
Okay.
and will be able to answer any of those questions. It was nice to be with all of you tonight.
I appreciate your time, Justin, very much.
Of course, yeah.
Dr. Kuhn.
Just a little bit more about the individual that we believe who submitted the map. We understand he's actually a university student, currently attending the University California Irvine, right, in studying demography. So it'd be kind of cool. It'd be kind of a cool story if a university student actually picked both the maps for Novato and the maps for the College of Marin. It'd be kind of a cool story to tell. Right? So
And we need to hear that he took a class at College of Marin too, okay?
there you go. We'll see what we can do on that. So at this
Okay.
point in time, I just want to do a quick
John?
check.
Do we have John yet?
I think we've had some miscommunication relative to, just a quick check, is David Patterson or John Eschelbach on? I don't believe they are. We're gonna invite them back in January
Okay,
for a redo. So at this
Okay.
point, I'd recommend we move on with the rest of the meeting. And then at 5 o'clock, we either, after we do the rest, if there's time for a break, great, then we come back, do the hearing and close this bad boy out. So there we go.
so just a point of clarification, would you like us to move on to E and go through those, maybe take a quick break at 5 and then?
Yeah, yes, I'd recommend if I don't see any Senate Maridel was here earlier.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, Marydale's here, but I don't see Meg.
Okay.
But we have Juniper too.
That's true. Let's do the
So-
Senate reports and go from there.
Meridell, could you please, we'll move on to Senate and student reports. We'll start with classified.
Yes, sure. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Good evening. Let me just pull my report up. Good afternoon, trustees and superintendent, president, Dr. Kuhn. Classified Senate's last meeting was in November, and our final meeting for the year is this week. We are wrapping up our activities for the year and looking forward to planning next semester's activities. One of the activities we're considering is a magic show with magician Alex Ramon on Zoom, and hopefully an in-person spring breakfast in March next year. If it works out, it'll be the first time in 2 years classified professionals will gather as a group, so fingers crossed. Classified Senate has been also busy working on some concepts for a Classified Senate logo, and we'll present the ideas for the logo to the Senate later this week. We're also working on an update on the Classified Senate Constitution. The Classified Professionals Liaison Committee is seeking a new member. A senator who sat on that committee has retired, so we have an open seat. Recruiting has begun, and we're hoping to have someone new trained in the next month or so. This committee is a committee of 3 that works under an MOU with the district to recruit classified professionals who sit on job hiring committees and also on the participatory governance committees. And last month, the book club met to discuss the classic novel To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. It was hosted by Janice Olson and Melanie Palomino. Our next book is a novel called The Overstory by Richard Powers, and we'll meet at the end of January to discuss this book. I'd like to extend special thanks to Janice Olson, Nigel Higgins, and Melanie Palomino for all their work on organizing the book club this year. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meridell. Really appreciate it. And so Juniper, do you want to give the student presentation?
Yeah, sure. 1 second. Sure. So,
You in finals week this week, Juniper?
yep, that's this week. But I'm pretty much all done. I just have the trigonometry final. That's my last one.
Oh, that's the easy one.
Yep. Calculus was last night, so it's finally.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Very
So,
impressive.
this is my ASCON presentation for 14th. So 4 days ago, we had an emergency meeting for the resignation of Ana Camacho, who's our president. She's taking a break to focus on her health. And then, so we appointed Sonia Saltzman, the previous vice president, to president. And we also appointed Emma Mitteregger as the senator, who is the senator of PR and marketing, to the vice president. And Sonia is currently working on filling some of the vacant spots we have on our board.
Awesome.
And then we also had the self and peer evaluation. So those were sent out on November 18th and due on the 3rd. We got our results back on the 8th, and it was basically just an evaluation using a scale of poor, fair, good, and excellent for different categories. Some of those were honoring ASCON community agreements and like communication, meeting the deadlines, etc. And there was also a section at the end with written constructive feedback for each member. So we read those and basically just, seeing what we need to improve on and work on for next year.
Awesome.
And then our finals week event. So there was a movie night where they showed Inside Out that was hosted by Haley Brown, our Senator of Technology. And there was a yoga day, and that was by Fernanda, who's the Student Activities and Services. And then there's also meditation techniques by Emma, who's the PR and marketing.
Very nice.
And then some of these were our events that we're planning to do coming up in spring. this next spring. So for January, we have the Welcome Week. And February, we're gonna have Black History Month Club Fest, and then either Valentine's Day or a Love is Love campaign. Maybe they'll combine the two. And then we'll have in March, we're gonna have Women's History Month, the meet and greet for ASCOM candidates and the alumni transfer. And in April, we're gonna have something on choosing your major, Earth Day, and the mental health.
Busy.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to make sure on behalf of the board, we wish the classified Senate and the students all a wonderful, happy holiday break. You guys have well deserved it. And hopefully you'll get some rest and relax a little bit and come back in January ready and raring to go. Thank you for your presentations tonight. Really appreciate it. All right.
I just remembered that we
Oh,
asked
okay.
all of the other trustees what they felt about the redistricting. We forgot to ask Jennifer.
Oh, you're right. Thank you, Paul. Jennifer, did you want to add any? It's actually districting. It's not redistricting. We've never had.
Yes, you're correct. You're correct. Thank you. Yes.
Jennifer, did you want to add any comments into the conversation we had? My apologies.
I'm not really sure. I don't think I have anything to add.
Okay. But thank you, Paul, for bringing that to my attention. I'll have to get better at that. David, we have time, I believe, for your brief oral recommendation before we take a brief break.
My brief oral recommendation, I'm going to call upon Nikki.
Okay,
Nikki, who's doing our brief oral recommendation?
thank you. Nikki, be brief about your brief.
Also, Connie's going to be reading.
Oh, is it
That would be
Connie?
me.
Connie will be the brief.
That would be me. I'll be the brief.
I'll be brief.
Be brief.
Hello all. So I'm here to do the oral recommendation for management personnel. So the recommended action, the superintendent president recommends that Lauren Service be placed as Dean of Arts and Humanities on a range M5 step 1 for a monthly rate of $12,474.56 on the management supervisory and confidential salary schedule effective January 3rd, 2022, with fringe benefits pursuant to the management supervisor and confidential employee salary schedule. Then under the public comment, for all managers, supervisory and confidential employees, fringe benefits are pursuant to the management supervisory and confidential employee salary schedule. Salaries are subject to change during the term of these employment agreements as a result of employee performance evaluations, step movement, and board approved percentage increases to that schedule. So the Dean of Arts and Humanities, the superintendent president recommends that Lauren Service be placed as Dean of Arts and Humanities, range M5, step 1, at a monthly rate of $12,474.56 on the management supervisor and confidential salary schedule, effective January 3rd, 2022, with fringe benefits pursuant to that salary schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you for being brief, Connie. And Nikki.
Yeah, so just a couple quick comments. Lauren Cervais, who's joining us, she's actually currently at that little college up the street, what's it called? The JC up the street. Yeah, that
Some
one.
junior college, yeah.
Anyway, she's a faculty member there, department chair. Ironically, 17 years ago, she was a founding faculty member at my last college in Washington State, Cascadia Community College. I haven't seen her for 17 years. And where I was vice president. Anyway, so it's great. She's great. And I also want to give a big shout out to the acting Dean of Arts and Humanities for the last 18 months, Jonathan Eldridge, doing a great job in his day and nighttime jobs. So thank you, Jonathan, for covering all that. So
thank you.
There you have
So
it.
we are just joined by Meg. So Meg, we jumped ahead a little bit, trying to make up for some time. Why don't you go ahead with the Academic Senate report now, please?
Thank you, and I apologize. I was knee deep in grading, and Mickey, I want to give you a big thank you for sending that email because I was in it, so I apologize.
Oh, good.
Also, I want to make apologies again for last month because I had Wi-Fi connectivity issues and could not come in to join you. So there is one thing that I wanted to mention from that. We had the presentation from the design groups and everything for the new LRC. And I will say that in general, as a body, we have some concerns about our classroom spaces. We did not realize that the beautiful all glassed entrance, which is the kind of reception area, which once again, beautiful, lovely, lovely entrance, that would actually be turned into 3 classrooms as needed. It feels a little like not really conducive to a classroom experience, especially if it's also the entranceway. At any rate, I hope that we will look at that closely and that you as a board will look at that closely and, ask some questions about what's its purpose is going to be and how that affects our classroom. There's been quite a lot of talk about whether we'll need as many classrooms as we anticipated, post-COVID because of the changes and everything. And I agree we should be flexible and fluid, but also let's not plan for something that we don't know is coming. So I just want us to be cognizant of the fact that we don't know what the changes are going to be and that classrooms may well still be at a premium on campus. So that was kind of from last month. Recap, sorry. This month, just to let you know that, let's see, wow. So the AP/BPs next semester, I promise, will be infrastructure semester. We have got our AP/BPs moving along. Mickey and I have sat down and figured out a great system that's going to just make it easier for it to flow. For my part on Senate, we've agreed that many things will just be on consent. We're just going to speed up the process so that we don't get mired down in that. And so Senate is on board to make that happen. Also, we are hoping that next semester we will be able to create some space on campus for our returning faculty with their sabbatical proposals, for a chance for them to present the work that they have been doing. And so Senate is hoping to invite our faculty to come and present. And of course, we will extend invitations across campus. And we hope that those that wish to present and want to share their work, that you would be kind enough to join us when that comes up. So I'll be sure to keep you guys posted on that. Also, we're all really tired and happy for the break to come. And I know that we all feel that way. It's not just the faculty. I know our students are feeling that way. I know the administration and the staff, and I'm sure you guys are feeling that way, the board. So I just really want to wish everybody some me time over the holidays. Make sure that you practice a little self-care. I know I have every intention of taking advantage of this time, and I hope you will. And I also wish for us all to be rejuvenated and ready to tackle the spring semester, because I anticipate, just because we are human beings, that there is going to be a bumpy beginning. And I just hope that we can all commit to being inclusive and helpful and making things as smooth as possible for everybody that's coming back to campus.
Thank you.
And that's my report.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.
Please send our best to the academic personnel and our best wishes.
Thank you very much. I will.
David, I was going to make the suggestion we just pass the consent agenda and then take a 10-minute break.
I was going to suggest the same thing.
All right. So do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move.
Paul moved.
Second.
Wandine seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Conti,
Aye.
trustee Crow, aye. Trustee De Silva,
Aye.
trustee Cranenberg,
Aye.
trustee Long,
Aye.
trustee O'Brien,
Aye.
trustee Trainer,
Aye.
trustee Yoshihara.
You just muted, Jennifer.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, fantastic. I see 4:48 on my clock. I'm going to request that we come back a minute earlier so we can start the public hearing on time. So please set your timers for 10 minutes. And so see you at 4:58. Thank you, the troops. All right. Waiting for Phil, Suzanne, Mondine, Paul. So. We are going to, in just a minute, we are going to begin the public hearing.
And Stephanie, it looks like David Saldani's dropped off, so I'd be happy to clarify where we're headed.
That would be fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate it. Give 1 more minute. All right, it is now 5 o'clock. I'm going to call the public hearing of Marin Community College's district draft mapping hearing to order. I don't have a gavel. David, would you like to take this?
Certainly. So good evening, everyone. For the record, the Board of Trustees took action earlier this evening to remove Resolution 2021-26, adopting final by area map plan for the Marin Community College District's transition to by-trustee-area election system this month. The plan is to bring it back for further discussion next month. The board has requested additional information on kind of a side-by-side comparison to the 3 maps that are currently being considered. The 3rd map was just submitted by a resident of Novato late last week. We just got the map earlier today. And so as required by the process, that map needs to be posted for public consideration for 7 days. So that map will be posted for folks to see. And again, we will have further conversation about that map and the other 2 maps that were previously submitted in January. Our original timeline was conservative, aggressive, to make sure we got it all done in time, but we feel like we do have the time in January and maybe a little bit of overlap in February if we need to get this across the finish line. We obviously want to make sure that we have the appropriate opportunity for the community to weigh in on the 3 maps being considered and for the board to have the best understanding of what each of those 3 maps represent.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kuhn. We had some conversation prior to this agenda item as a board regarding the maps. Would the board like to have any further conversation about the maps and the planning process? If so, please raise your hand. Paul? You're muted.
Very much. Thank you. Okay. Yes, I was just thinking about the process for normally noticing board meetings. Normally what we do is do public noticing 72 hours in advance, right? So it wouldn't be that much of a stretch to perhaps do the noticing for the maps and the public hearing part of that meeting 4 days before that. So that's just one thought that I was thinking. The other thing that I was thinking of was that as I worked through with the map making tool, I found out there's no way to maintain the integrity of every city and town in Marin in any map. So there, if I tried, for example, in map number 2, people commented that Mill Valley was split up. And so then if Mill Valley is made whole, it invariably leads to splitting some other city or town. And so if Novato is made whole, it might lead to splitting some other city or town. If San Rafael is, well, Novato and San Rafael have to be split somehow because they have large populations. But if we want to make, for example, Larkspur whole, then we end up maybe cutting off a piece of Fairfax and someone. So that's just my insight from having worked with the tool a little bit. And there will always be winners and losers depending on which priority is given to make which city or town whole, and it's unavoidable.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other trustee? Diana?
I just would like to say that we discussed the maps extensively during this, the study session part. And I think in general, just from my perspective, what I think I heard as saying is we continue to see benefits to scenario 1, but we're also very interested in scenario 3, the new one that's come in. And there's more there. We have some questions that need to be answered about it. And our demographer will have to take a look at it in terms of things that they have to take a look at in terms of precincts and how it works in that way. But I think what I heard is that the board felt that it was worth exploring. There was things we liked about it keeping communities more together. It's not a huge difference from scenario 1, but there was more information than we needed, and we wanted to find out more about that.
Agreed. Wendy.
Well, I just think there's also, we don't want to lose, it wasn't just the one map submitted, but apparently there's a public gallery map that still has to be evaluated by Andrew. And so we actually have, 2 people submitted something, neither was in time for us to really consider them tonight. So it's hard. Obviously, we'll have more discussion once we get to take a closer look at them. But I think it was a very important process that the board looked at, that we needed to take the time, that if individuals in the community had stepped forward and spent that kind of time to do that, that we wanted to do it. And we had 3 public comments that are included on the website as well from 3 individuals, one being the developer of the scenario 3 and one former trustee and one our assessor. So, we got some information that was helpful as well. So I think we should pat ourselves on the back a wee bit about the process and being open to it and making sure we're thoughtful and deliberate. So kudos and thank you for the tolerance of us being able to continue the conversation.
Thank you. Any other trustee have any other comments? Would anyone from the public like to make any comment at this point? Stuart?
I have an election process question. So looking at the various scenarios that we've been presented so far, there are some scenarios where there are multiple current incumbents that are in the same districts, and then there's also some districts that are created where there would be no representation. So from a legal processing point, how would we determine which districts would be up for an election in 2022 and 2024?
So I know Justin spoke to the importance of doing that work. And Andrew, can you answer that question, or do we need to get that answer back to Stuart?
I could attempt to answer, but David and Justin would probably be more insightful with it. Normally, when we're looking at this and when we make considerations as the demographer, when we do have incumbents paired up in a possible scenario, we would obviously relay that information to the board so they know what trustees are paired up and whose term expires first. Because if they have staggered terms, maybe one's 22, one's 24, the member who's in that area that's their term ends in 2024, they're still an elected official. They would be on the board. So the recommendation at that point would be that the trustee from 2022 would fall off, and then one of the open areas would pick up the election that year. But the attorneys and Justin can speak more to that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. We will pass that question along to David Saldani as well, just in case he has anything else to add to Andrew's response.
Excellent. Thank you. So we are joined by the creator of what we are now calling map number 3, Zachary. We had an extensive conversation about your map a little bit earlier in our study session, but feel free to chime in. What would you like to contribute to the conversation? You just muted again. There you go.
Yes, thank you so much for extending the process to entertain my map. I told the Novato City Council a while back that when it comes to redistricting, a little bit of investment pays large dividends. And I applaud this board for making that investment to make sure that we have a good map. I did just want to use this time to take any questions, if that's allowed, that the board might have. I also have an interactive map of scenario 3 available to share with the public if you would allow that as well. And then I also wanted to clarify one issue that might arise during the discussion of my map, which is its high population deviation, which arises generally from the underpopulation of District 7, which includes West Marin. And my reasoning for doing that is, one, to follow city council lines in Novato. My map essentially puts council districts 3, 4, and 5 in a Novato-based district, and council districts 1 and 2 in District 7 alongside West Marin and Muir Woods Park. And the second reason is to ensure that when the Fireman's Fund is developed in Novato, that there is not a massive disparity in registered voters in the new districts. So I just wanted to clear that up in case that was an issue. The map that I developed was really, I grew up in Marin, grew up in Center Fell, Novato. I know the communities fairly well. I really wanted to ensure that they were represented. And I also shared a lot of the board's concern about city splits. My map, I tried to make sure that I split as few cities as possible. So Mill Valley is kept whole. Most of the Ross Valley cities are kept whole. I think Larkspur, Center Fell, and Novato are the only cities that my map splits. If not, please somebody call me on that and I'll be happy to fix it. And so I just wanted to take the time to thank the board for entertaining my map. And I look forward to any feedback that the public might have. And if it's okay, I can share the link to the interactive viewer in the chat.
So Zachary, thank you very much. I'm going to defer to David as to what the procedure is for this. As I mentioned earlier, we had an extensive conversation. The map is intriguing. Our demographer needs to go back and do some work on it because there are different things that need to be considered in our mapping. David, if you can answer Zachary's comments, please.
So what I would say is, and thank you, Zachary, for being here. Maybe we could ask him to highlight anything he'd like us to know on his map that not going way into the weeds, but just about what he took into consideration as he developed the map. How about that?
I think he just did.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay, so maybe if there's questions on that, then yeah.
Okay, so I've got Anne's hand up first, and then I will take Wandine's.
Hi, I'm Ann Wakeley from the League of Women Voters, and I want to commend you for taking the time to go and look at what the public is submitting. I think that's so important. I really appreciate that you're doing that. Now, am I correct in understanding there are 2 maps that have been submitted, but they are not yet available on the website for the public to see?
Right.
Okay, what about public?
Oh, actually, I apologize, Anne. When there is one on the districtor site, and then there's one that we just received that is going to be, I think, set up on the site.
Okay, so it's possible to go then on your site and see the map that we were talking about?
No, it's somebody else's map that our demographer has not yet had the chance to work with.
Okay, so the maps aren't up yet, but will be.
Yes, plenty, lots of notification, lots of time. We've discovered that we don't have as much of a time pressure as, we were trying to be very cognizant of the dates, and it turns out we built in a lot of time, which is good. So we could have extra meetings if necessary. So it looks like we are probably going to be able to make a decision late January, early February.
So Andrew, not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, what do you think your timeline is to get those both posted?
Scott would be the person to.
Oh, Andrew is our demographer.
Andrew, I thought you were talking to me.
No,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So my goal would be, we've already done Mr. Griggy's scenario, and then the other one would be, I'm hoping to have it by the end of the week.
Excellent.
So that leading into kind of the holiday break, that information is out there for a good extended period of time for the public to review.
Great.
Okay, so one more question. You have had public comments submitted. Are those available to be seen on the website?
Mickey, where are those? Those are just going to be part of the record today.
Right, they become part of the record, and typically after the board meeting, I embed them in the public content of the board agenda.
Okay, so there won't be a link to them specifically on the website. It's going to be embedded.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, and Wandine.
I don't know if this is a process question for the board, but I think there's a part of me that wants to maximize the potential of having the creator of the map and Andrew to have the opportunity to perhaps get a quick look at what I think that Mr. Griggy said that he could put it up and we could look at it quickly. It might be something that we might want to do. And I didn't know how the board felt about it. This is the public hearing part, and I recognize we want to keep the meeting moving.
Oh,
but
no,
I'm
no.
looking at the synergy of what we have right here, that we might get more information in 5 minutes that we might lose and not gain the benefit of tonight.
My only concern was that the map that he put up had to be translated into the map that we look at, that which we saw earlier. So it's a slightly different packaging of his map. And then Andrew, the map that we looked at, if Andrew wants to pull that one up, I think that actually makes a great deal of sense. So Andrew and Zachary can then talk about what they had to do to make it the map that we're looking at. Does that make
Right,
sense?
and I want to acknowledge that the board needs to defer to the expert we engaged as our
Absolutely.
consultant for. So I'm
Absolutely.
not questioning that part. I just thought there might be something that even Andrew would maybe gain if we had this opportunity.
That's to you, Andrew.
Yeah, so we're referencing how Mr. Griggy was, he's made an online tool with his map and for viewing. That's what we're talking about, correct? Yeah. So what I did with Marin COE and what I can do here after this meeting is take all of the different maps and put them on a digital platform where, in Google Maps, where you can overlay the different scenarios and you can see the differences between one or two and have all the options to toggle them on and off, including any new scenarios that we're going to pull from the district or tool. So I can digitize them all there, and then that can be in a tool that any member of the board or any member of the public would want to access.
I think the point was, Andrew, so I'm not sure if Zachary created his map in Districtor or where he
Okay.
created it, but then you guys took that, and just make sure I'm understanding the process. You took that and put it into your GIS system.
He
and then,
does. Yeah, Zachary actually provided me with the GIS shape file. So his tools, it just translated right into my system. So it was perfect.
perfect. So the map we looked at was your map, your interpretation of his map.
Yeah, yeah, essentially.
Yeah,
So-
okay. So if you want to bring that one up, I think Wandine was suggesting that by bringing that up, I mean, we had a presentation from Justin on it earlier, but Zachary, if there's anything that we don't understand, or if Andrew doesn't understand, this would be a great time to talk about it. So you want to do that, Andrew?
Yeah, can you see my screen
There
here?
you go. Excellent. So Zachary, the way it was explained, like you mentioned earlier, that, following more council lines, that type of thing. We had a presentation on how it's set up. We had a Zoom in. If you want to add anything here that we should be paying attention to that may not be obvious from the presentation.
I think the presentation and my testimony covered it pretty well. I just
Okay.
really wanted to stress that, I really tried to follow, Marin is a series of valleys
Right.
that make pretty clear dividing lines. Like, the Ross Valley is, pretty distinct from, say, the San Geronimo Valley or downtown Santa Fe. And, I really tried to make sure that each of the, that those ridge lines were respected where possible, and that, we didn't cross ridge lines or streams where we didn't have to. I think the only district that kind of does that is District 7, but even then there's a, Nevada Boulevard and Point Reyes, Petaluma Road connect the two portions of the district in a pretty, commonly used route. So I really, I really wanted to minimize division of cities, keep those ridge lines intact. And, also, I grew up in northern Santa Fe. There's a very distinct, everything north of, San Pedro Mountain and south of Big Rock Ridge. It's kind of a very distinct area from the southern part of the city. And so, I wanted to have a northern Santa Fe district and a, central Santa Fe district where possible. And, this map accomplishes that. Santa Fe is only split 2 different ways in this map.
Okay.
I'm rambling now, so I'll
No, that's
stop.
okay. I just wanted to note, you had said earlier that, the variance being up to 8.25, I think was the number. Maybe Andrew, you can go down the second slide. It shows the third slide actually of this. Go one more, yeah, and zoom in. I don't think, well, wow. Good zooming. The variance isn't as much of a concern to our consultant, and I have not heard any concerns for us, because sometimes it's as long as it's under 10%, there's no advantage to as long as all the we'll just call it the demographics work out more beneficially for everyone. So that's not a concern of ours. I just wanted to communicate that to you. Do any other, so everyone, we've seen this. Do any of the other trustees, would you like to engage in any other conversation, or anyone from the public engage in any conversation about what we called scenario Griggy, but is now map number 3? Okay, I think we're good then. So at this point, should I close the hearing, David?
Yes.
All right, the
And
hearing.
thank you for allowing us to see it so the public could see that other map too. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So going to be closing the public hearing of the district map draft conversation. Thank you everyone for joining us for that. All right, we're going to move on to H1.
Can we all collectively thank Zachary for caring?
No, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, it's fantastic work. All right. H1, do I have a motion? Or we have a presentation? I'm sorry, David, do we have a presentation? No, I didn't think so. Yeah.
No, we included everything we thought you
Yes.
needed to know.
Yes, okay, that's what I thought.
Okay.
All right, do I have a motion?
I just wanted to,
We can still discuss. Let's get a motion in a
okay,
second. Okay, so who's the motion?
I'll move.
Okay.
Second,
Okay, thank you. Paul, you had discussion?
no, I think we addressed this earlier, but I just wanted to emphasize that whenever we come up with an item that has lights in it, we should just remember that light pollution is one of the most, possibly the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing forms of pollution in the world. And so we really have to make sure we're mitigating that. And I think VP Nelson has given us assurance in the past that all lights that are installed anywhere on our campuses will be appropriately